All right. Well, welcome to the Everyday Tarot podcast, your dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, hallowed high priestess, tarot reader, and professional witch. And today I'm joined by my guest, Colette Dalton. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm Colette Dalton. My pronouns are she, her. I am a trained licensed clinical social worker. I come from that background with a lot of different mental health experience, been in the field for 15 years. I'm also queer, and I'm the host of the Queer Joy Summit and Queer Creativity Summit. And lately, I've really been diving into just alternative healing modalities besides what I was taught in grad school and the more traditional things. And I've been loving incorporating mysticism and tarot and sound healing and Reiki and different things with people I work with to really create a customized healing path to help people uh, just move forward in their lives. And so I'm really excited to come here and talk about some of that.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for that as well. I'm like, immediately I have questions that I did not write down. So can't wait for that.
Perfect.
Yeah. If folks hear this episode and they want to be a guest on the podcast, I have my guest inquiry form linked in the show notes. And before we get into it, if you want to connect further with Colette, I have their website and then their Instagram and Threads handle also will be in the show notes. You can go find them that way. All right. Yeah. So I wanted today to start with each of us maybe pulling a card.
Great.
Um, and maybe that will just sort of set us up for what we're gonna chat about today, or just see if there's a particular direction. Does that sound good?
That works great for me.
Okay.
Are we pulling for anything in particular?
Hmm. Before we got on, you and I were both talking about feeling kind of like lower energy.
Yeah.
So that would be sort of my like framing of being like, I want to know like what's going on? Like why, like,
hmm
are we supposed to be resting more? Are we
hmm
burned out? What's going on? So
hmm
that's that's going to be sort of my question for the
Sure.
cards. And I immediately had a card fall out.
Of course you did.
It's very this I'm using the Sasser Beach Tarot deck by Stassia Barrington. You might be able to tell if you can see the front, but it is like worn down. It is my oldest deck, and I love it, but I have so many decks now. I don't use it super often, but I use it the last couple of days. I was doing some future podcast recording solo
Uh-huh.
episodes, and literally like the last two times I shuffled it, I didn't even get a complete like I shuffled one time and the card fell out, and I was like, okay, okay, like
Got it, got it.
we're very
And
sensitive. Okay.
I'm pulling from the Light Seers Tarot. I also have quite the collection of decks, and this is one that I've just been using a lot lately. I love the imagery on it. It's just very, very vivid, very I think helpful for people who maybe don't love using a guidebook or want to really tune into the artistry of the cards before looking at a guidebook, because I just think it has some really good imagery that can help evoke what it's speaking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm very curious. Yeah. What did you pull? What image came out?
Yeah, I pulled Page of Swords. And honestly, it's kind of funny for how I do tarot. I feel like I should, quote unquote, do like know tarot more. But I really do like looking at the cards. And when I work with people, I like being, well, what do you see in the card? Not being like, well, Page of Sword always equals this. I like it being more of a conversation and reflection. And so, like, if I were doing this with you, I would have, okay, so what are you seeing in this card? Here's a Page of Swords. I know you know way more about tarot than I do, but in this particular image, is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, immediately the book they're holding, I'm like, what's this? That stands out. I feel like they have a very like, I mean, they sort of look like they're like floating, or they have kind of
I,
like a
I know it's
ballerina.
hard to tell. They're balancing on something that's
Yeah,
being like too
they
cliff.
like are up on their like
hmm
tiptoes. where I'm like, they look very composed, but when
Hmm.
I really look at them, I'm like, oh, how are you not falling over? Like,
Right.
and so with that context, with what we were talking about, I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, it sounds like we're spinning a lot of plates and like
Uh-huh.
we're trying to make it look good on the outside, but internally we're like, ugh. Uh, so that's sort of my initial thoughts as to what I see.
Yeah, I really like that. I also, what stands out to me is she's holding what looks like balloons, but then you
Yeah.
look at it and it's actually light bulbs,
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
which
I
I
saw the
think,
birds too, which I was like, oh, that's interesting.
yeah, and like her jacket is kind of behind her, like there's definitely some wind and movement.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, really, how is she not falling off it looks like a stick or a wand that she's bouncing on between
Yeah.
two
Right. It
cliffs.
looks like a tightrope kind of.
It does,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and so it's interesting to me what comes up is like, how is she grounding herself with all these ideas and balancing between things? And a lot of times when I do tarot, it's just I get more questions than answers. But
Tarot loves
that's great.
to play like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And after I do that, I will sometimes be like, oh, is there something in the guidebook that stands out too? So with Page of Swords, I really also do love this guidebook. Um, the way that she does upright versus reverse, she calls it light seer versus shadow seer and has like keywords for each. And then just an overall about the card and then an affirmation. And her affirmation for this one is I learn and expand my consciousness and open up new opportunities for my life. And I really like that.
Yeah.
Like,
The card I pulled has like a similar message. So that's interesting.
oh,
Um, yeah.
I'm
So
curious what your
maybe,
card is.
yeah. Okay. So I pulled the Four of Cups, but in reverse.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a solemn, I feel like when we look at it upright, there's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of gray. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a person with braided hair with like the braids like sort of wrapped around their neck and they're not
Mm-hmm.
really looking at the image. And cups I feel like are always, they're kind of like emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I think when I look at this immediately, I'm like grief, like in the upright. So yeah, when I looked in the book, I also like this book. It's like very clear and it has reversal definitions for all of
Yes.
them, which I always appreciate because I like to read reversals, but some of my decks I'm like, I guess I'm making it up because I don't have it. Yeah. So upright, it's very like sadness, apathy,
Mhm.
internal retreat, disinterest, like shutting yourself off, which I get when I look at that. Like she's like eyes closed, very like, no, thank you.
Mhm.
But reversed, it says you may be in a rut, but good news, with some effort, you can get out of it. Reach out to others, take hold of opportunities you may not have noticed. So it's
Mm.
just immediately like, ooh, opportunities. Like that came up twice and sort of like encouraging like you might not be feeling like amazing, right? Like you might
Mhm.
be feeling a little stuck, but like something's coming or like some like look out for
Mhm.
something changing.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think it's for me, when I was pulling, I was just like, what's something I need to be aware of or know right now?
Yeah.
That tends to be one of my go-to when I pull if I don't have another specific question. And so it's interesting that both of them came up with opportunities. And I feel like that's been a bit of a theme as I've been doing some evolution personally and in my business. And I am looking out for different opportunities. Even just like being on this podcast was a kind of random opportunity, right? And
Yeah.
just trying new things and not shutting the door
Mm.
too early on potential things that could be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that is sort of like springtime energy. Like as we're
Mhm.
recording this, at least if you're in the northern hemisphere, just went through like the spring equinox,
Mhm.
which I always think of as like explosive energy
Uh-huh.
and maybe now we're like, oh, that was a lot. Like you're saying, it's like, okay, how do I like I know for me, it's like, how do I not burn out if like I have,
Yeah.
right, I'm starting spring and now like winter's a long time away at this point if we're going
Hmm.
forwards. Where it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was right, more hunkered down. I was doing a little more internal in winter and now, like you said, sort of like allowing, oh, an opportunity came up. Like, let me just like do that without like thinking too much about it and just be like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Um, which
And
I,
that's, I do have that tendency to overthink. So I do appreciate that reminder.
yeah. Yeah, right. And yours is a swords card. So we do have
Hmm.
that like I always think of the swords as like anxiety, overthinking,
Hmm.
like stuck in your head,
Hmm.
wanting to have a plan, but like getting kind of caught up in what is it? How do I do it? I love a plan personally. So I pull swords and I'm like, okay, fine, fine.
I hear you. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so we had this sort of, so it sounds like the answer to my question of like, why are we tired? Why are we feeling burned out? Or how do we, kind of move forward? It sounds
Hmm.
like, yeah, not like allowing opportunities to come, but not like trying to like force anything almost.
Yeah.
Or like don't work too hard, right? That's like
Yeah.
kind of the other message I get, right? Because your card looks like I'm like, she's not like she doesn't look like she's working hard. She looks like she's doing
Mhm.
great. And I'm like, I don't know how. Like, how do you do that? But
I know. Give us that answer. That looks really great to just be that
yeah,
carefree and moving forward and things are working out.
yeah. Yeah, what do you think the light bulbs are in that card? I was trying to think about like what are these the opportunities we think or
I think it's ideas and opportunities is kind of what's coming through for
yeah,
me. Because I think for me, as I'm in this kind of transitionary period, um, there are a lot of ideas, and it can sometimes be tricky to decide which one to move on. Like she's holding on to the ideas and still
yeah,
moving forward, maybe knowing that not every idea needs to be acted on at this moment, but still has them for when an opportunity does arise. Um, I think the Page of Swords is also really good about just that curiosity and letting
yeah.
curiosity lead the way and not needing to know the right answer because maybe there isn't one, but letting yourself just be curious to see what happens and what opportunities are available.
Yeah, it makes me think again about like spring equinox and like, oh, we're like planting seeds, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're not gonna like eat the tomato yet. Like
Yeah.
we're way early for that. But it's like you gotta think about, right? If we want to
Mhm.
plan, it's like, okay, what do I want to be eating in 6 months? Okay,
Mhm.
like let me plant that seed now.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, like running your own business, that aspect, especially early in my business, felt so hard. Where you're like,
Mhm.
what? I have to like do a thing now and I'm not gonna like see anything from it for like a year or more. And it's like, oh man, that was like a real mind game early on.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it's less anxiety inducing, I think.
Mhm.
Also, I've had longer to like plant seeds and like you said,
Yeah.
kind of to see like, oh, what's gonna come up? Like
Mhm.
because again, as someone that like gardens, I'm like,
Mhm.
sometimes you plant seeds and nothing comes up, or like
Yeah.
it doesn't come up for a year. And you're like, are these seeds bad? No, they just like didn't have the right conditions. And then they
Or
up the
like
next year.
you maybe planted something thinking you'll really like it, and then you harvest it and realize, actually, I
Yeah.
don't like this variety of tomatoes.
No. Or like it took up way too much space in your garden and you got like one cabbage and you're like, I don't know, like this, I don't think this is it for me.
And then continuing to tweak and refine. And that's
Yeah.
been, I think, a big part of my journey is I want that perfectionism, that perfect answer, everything working out now. And having to take the imperfect action to get more information to see, like, is this actually what I want? How does this feel? How are people responding? Do I still feel aligned even if others aren't signing up and doing all the things? And it's a lot of that sort of self-reflection that I think can be a bit of a trip as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when I think about it in the context of tarot, like that is what always feels so important to me to like talk with tarot
Hmm.
newbies about is that like no, just like try it, right? Like I feel like so many people, myself included, early on, it's like you gotta take a course or like read a book and like memorize all the
Hmm.
cards. And it's like, or you could just play with them and like
Hmm.
see and like you'll learn that way. But yeah, you kind of have to like do it and like have some imperfection or be like, I'm gonna read the book, right? Like, I don't know, but I'm gonna read the book and see what it says to take on like what is okay, now I understand what the card means. Or
Hmm.
I can look at the imagery and get like a vibe without knowing a ton of
Right.
information. And that's definitely to me what I like about tarot is like it's such a visual medium.
Hmm.
It is art that it's like, yeah, you can have the same card across decks and it can have a different feel to it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think, yeah.
Oh, I'm just going through my deck now because I'm really curious. You pulling Four of Cups in your deck. I'm so
Okay.
curious the imagery of what it is in this deck.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'll
if you
look for
like want to do
my
the same of like what the Page of Swords in
Page
your
of
deck.
Swords. Yeah.
Because
I have
I'm the
like an
same
image
way.
in
I
my
was
head
talking
of
to
it.
someone who is like really, really into tarot, but only has like four decks they use because they're like, well, tarot's all the same meaning. And I'm like, but the imagery is so different
Yeah.
and can mean very, very different things. So that I did find the Four of Cups in the Light Seers Tarot. And again, these are pretty colorful cards. I'm like,
Mm.
if I can get the light better. So you
But
can.
yeah, very contemplative, very
And the
like,
cups are like at her feet. She's kind of holding on to one. The others are
yeah.
kind of ignored.
There's
Um,
like that melancholy sort of look.
uh,
Mm, you know what's
mhm.
happening. So looking for my
Very good.
Page of Swords. Yeah.
And that's why I one of the reasons I just collect decks is because I love seeing the different interpretations and imagery and
Yeah.
artistry and how that can help deepen a meaning.
Yeah. This is mine here. It's
Okay.
very like, I don't know, adventurer. Like interestingly, it has the same like movement.
Yeah, that wind
Like
and hair.
their hair is like billowing. They have like a
Mhm.
cape that's kind of like pulling away from them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's a much more static image. We don't have all the things like in the air or the balancing
Mhm.
act, but
And looking very determined and ready
yeah.
to face whatever's happening head on.
And also like sort of young. Like I
Mhm.
feel like both of the people in the card have like a very like youthful energy to them where you're like,
Mhm.
oh, that just seems like it's just going really well for you. Um, but yeah, I mean the page is like the young card of the court cards.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about pages as I'm getting to know Tara more is just kind of that adventurous, I'm gonna do it and figure it out
Yeah,
energy.
right. It's very like the fool in the
Mhm.
court card
Yeah, that's a
energy.
great way of
Like,
putting it.
yeah. And that like, yeah, you kind of have to like do it to figure it out. Like pages are so interesting because I feel like we have so many words that like knight, queen, king, like so many different iterations like in society, pop culture. But
Mhm.
pages, I'm like, I think of like political people, right? They have
Mhm.
pages, and I'm like,
Mhm.
other than that, I think of like medieval times,
Yeah,
and
I think of
like there's
Sword in the
not a lot
Stone.
of other, yeah, it's like there's not a lot of other examples um of that. Like, yeah, because it is a level of like servitude, but more like
Mhm.
an intern.
Yeah,
Um, where you're like, I'm new and fresh and like I just want to learn. Yeah.
kind of like bright-eyed, not
Uh-huh.
fully knowing what they're getting into,
Right.
but doing it
Which is like
anyways.
sort of right, like to their advantage
Yeah.
sometimes. And then, yeah, there is, right. And I think that that's that like youthfulness that seems to be in both cards of kind of like, yeah, could also be like naivete.
Mhm.
Of like, ooh, you don't like totally know what you're getting into.
Mhm.
And maybe if you did, you wouldn't have taken this page position.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, we all sort of have to I mean, like we're talking about with business, right? It's like you kind of have to go through that stage of like, I guess I'm just gonna try things. Like you can again learn about other people's businesses or be coached or like do different things to try to help you, but I feel like ultimately it's like you kind of just have to like go through it,
Yep.
do it to see what actually works, like to get actual data about what works for you in your
Yep.
business
Yep.
at this time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's take it back. So how were you first introduced to tarot or oracle or what was your
Yeah,
introduction?
I first back to Kickstarter in like 2019. I don't know what it is about Kickstarter. I like seeing what people are doing. I have backed way too many. And I just saw this deck that just looked beautiful. And I hadn't had any exposure really to tarot besides what's in pop culture media.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I just need to have this. And I got it. And then I didn't do anything with it for months. And then I joined a tarot study group of sorts where someone was leading us through the whole deck of like, these are kind of the archetypes and what each card kind of means and symbolizes. And during that year, I was going through a lot of life change and just figuring things out. And tarot really became a practice to me of tuning into myself,
Mm.
which was pretty radical. I grew up in a high demand religion, and I was really used to turning over my authority to someone else, whether that was God or leaders within the church or my parents or just what other people around me thought. And as I would do a daily card pull, as I was trying to understand tarot better, I generally would ask, like, what do I need to know today? What do I need to be aware of? And it became a really reflective tool for me of just tuning into myself in a way that felt more comfortable than just asking myself, because it was still a little external. There
Yeah.
was a tool I was using, but it was still ultimately me. I wasn't giving over my authority to a deck of cards, but I was tuning into myself through the cards. And that's when I first really started getting into it. And then I just have backed many a Kickstarter since with various decks of tarot, oracle. I have an extensive collection just because I love the imagery. I love what can be brought up. I've used it with clients in therapy and coaching. I do moon circles with friends and in the coven I'm founding. And it's just so, I think it's such a helpful tool as a reflective practice and in tuning into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, thinking about like a tool, I think is helpful. I mean, I always like from a therapy lens, I'm like, yeah, we
Mhm.
have like coping strategies, we have
Mhm.
tools. So that
Mhm.
makes sense to me. The intuition piece, I like that's what I love about tarot, and
Yeah.
also similarly sort of allowed me. I think I sort of remember that the only other time that I felt like I was like tuned into intuition was like in a bookstore where I'd be like,
Mhm.
what book is calling to me? Like I were
Yeah.
or a library where I would go in
Uh-huh.
and be kind of like, oh, I'll allow myself to just like see what I find. That
Mhm.
was sort of my own the only other way before tarot that I kind of like allowed it or practiced
Yeah.
it. And yeah, now I agree. Like I love the imagery. Like to me, that's
Mhm.
what feels so unique about tarot. Especially from like I was gonna say divinatory practice, but I guess a lot of divinatory practices actually have visual things.
Mhm.
Um, there's just not necessarily the like, yeah, I don't know. I love art. So to me, it's like I get to have 78 tiny pieces of this like artist like
Mhm.
in my hands.
Mhm.
And like you said, like to look at similarities and differences
Yeah.
across decks is so cool to me. I'm curious. So when we were talking about those swords, you and I were both being like, yeah, anxiety, overthinking. Hey, I've had other people like bring up this, like, how do you know if it's anxiety or intuition? Because
Mhm.
often I think it is that like internal voice or you get like a feeling. Like, how do you differentiate, or how does it feel differently to you? And like, also, it's fine if you don't, like, I don't think there's a real answer. I'm more just like, how, because I think for people that overthink, that's like a big fear about intuition is like, how do I know that's like me and it's good
Yeah.
versus like, I'm, yeah, feeding into my own fear or something.
No, absolutely. I think I'm still figuring it out, so I don't know
Yeah.
that I have a right answer either, but generally it I can notice how grounded I feel within myself, that even if there is some ang anxiety is not even quite the word, but it feels different than anxiety, like kind of not even a warning, but just like a forethought, something, but I still feel grounded and okay. If I start spiraling and really feeling the anxiety, um, start going down darker paths in my mind, start just freaking out, then I know that's not my intuition speaking, because I know my intuition is a lot more grounded. Whereas my negative internal voices, dealing with mental health stuff my whole life, is a lot more flighty and
Yeah.
likes to go down spirals and things that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, well, to me, what I like about the sword suit is that it often evokes that feeling of flightiness, like the
Hmm.
anxiety sort of often is showed up in the cards because like I
Hmm.
have a deck where all of the swords cards are animals that fly, like they're birds. And
Oh,
I
I
th right
love that.
in your card even, right, we have
Yeah, I love
birds
birds. Hmm.
in there. And then it's like all the cups cards are water animals because it's like the
Hmm.
water element
Hmm.
where I'm like, yeah, I think there is that like mental spinning of the wheels. Anxiety feels like, and I think, yeah, to me too, intuition feels more like it's like lower. It's like, yeah, more like center gravity. It
More
feels
in
like,
my body than my head.
yeah, it feels more like a nudge
Yeah.
or, yeah, sometimes like a bit more gentle too,
Hmm.
like you're
Hmm.
saying, than, but I also know as someone that like, yeah, as a therapist works with clients with anxiety, I think it is often hard when people first come in to differentiate between, or like there's a lot of fear around like, well, that's not my intuition. That's
Hmm.
like, right, all the bad, the
Hmm.
spiraling, the freaking out, the like, how do I, know what like the good kind of like thoughts are? I don't know.
Hmm.
I just think it's a common experience for people that
Yeah.
have anxiety is to kind of like to have learned that they can't like trust themselves almost because of like the spiraling and the inner
Yeah.
thoughts, the kind of intrusive thoughts, and it's like a very gradual process to being like, okay, this is like you said, this is how it feels different.
Yeah.
This is how I kind of know. And I also think personally that I'm like intuition, it doesn't always have to be like good. Like the
Sure.
nudge could be like, oh, there's someone like following me and like I'm just gonna like I think I'm just gonna lock my doors or I'm gonna like go
Yeah.
do right where it can have like uh yeah, I guess I've experienced it in a way too that like could be looked at from the outside as anxiety.
Sure.
Um, but I think, yeah, that's like the other part that feels hard sometimes is like, I think as someone that was socialized, raised as a woman, it's like
Right.
a lot of your intuition has gotten made fun of or said like, oh, that's not real.
Hmm.
Like, and I think that's why so many people, you kind of have to come back to it.
Hmm. Well, and one thing I appreciate about what you said, I remember you said it's a gradual process, and I think it's a gradual process both ways of giving into learning to not trust your intuition and then gradually learning to trust it and coming back to it. Because I think we all have it when we're young, but
Yeah.
it's trained out of us in various ways, whether it's because we are socialized as women, we are in a high demand religion, we're in families that are a little more authoritarian than authoritative, various reasons. And learning to come back to yourself and trust your intuition, again, I think is so important but hard and a gradual process. And the other thing that stood out to me, you said I sometimes still get like what may be viewed as anxiety of, oh, lock your doors, whatever. One thing that I've noticed a little bit with intuition versus anxiety, though, is I might get nudges or ideas of like, oh, I should do this, and it feels urgent, and maybe there's a little anxiety, but I don't spiral about it. Like, I remember one time I had the same sort of thing of like, lock your door immediately. And I was like, okay, and I did it, and I was fine.
Yeah.
Instead of continuing to, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Is someone out there? Do I need to call the police? It just was like a very urgent nudge, and then it was okay.
Yeah. 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 I think that is also my experience where it's like it's like it's very loud and then it's quiet. Like
Mhm.
it's like, okay, you should do this. Like I think you should listen and then you do it and like you said, there's sort of this like, okay, like I listened. Um yeah, and I think right, most if you interact with small children, like they're
Mhm.
very intuitive, right? I think
Mhm.
sometimes right? Like part of what adults do with children is that we're like, oh, that's annoying, right? Or like, oh, that's like inconvenient to me.
Uh-huh.
If I'm allowing you to express how you actually feel, or if I'm like honoring the fact that like you don't feel comfortable
Hmm.
going to that place, school, church, the store, whatever it is, and that's like part of that, like you said, the like learning to ignore it or that like that's
Yeah.
not okay. Um, yeah, because again, I'm like, yeah, if you hang around the little kids, you're like, oh my God, they're like scary intuitive.
Uh-huh.
Because they don't, yeah, they haven't learned yet, right, that
Mhm.
that could be seen as, or that like it's hard to control
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
if they sort of have their inner knowing and have that like guide for themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
But I love that people can get back to themselves. And for
yeah.
me, the route, uh, part of my journey was through tarot and oracle cards because really it became almost like a meditative practice when I would do reflection, which forced me to tune back into myself. This also, excuse me, was happening during the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And so there was a lot more turning internally. There wasn't as much outside noise of all the shoulds in society and everything that way. And I think the combination of those things really got me to tune inwards. And I think there's so many ways that people can tune back into their intuition in themselves. This just happens to be my way. So I love exposing people to this possibility of like, have you tried this? Can this be a helpful practice? And for some people it is, some people it isn't. No judgment either way, but it's worked for me, and I think it can be a cool tool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it feels so different, especially if you've come from kind of like you're saying your own religious background or just or you've been told a lot of things and this is how it is and this is what you have to do to be like I'm gonna choose like a thing that works for me and
Mhm.
like that again like I get to sort of interrogate my thoughts, my intuition about it. I can, of course, like reference, I can use the
Mhm.
book, I can talk to other people, I can go online, I can be in like a tarot, I can't remember the word to use, but like a study club, like a book club
Mhm.
kind of for tarot to learn and like there's that personal level of
Yeah.
it of like, oh yeah, I have to learn what works for me
Mhm.
and what it means to me. And I think, yeah, I think there's also something comforting about being able to like have a routine when you
Mhm.
have left those like religions that are very
Yeah.
routine based to be like, okay, I don't have to do those things, but I
Mhm.
think as humans, we like our routine, right? This is also what
Yeah.
ritual is about of like, okay, I'm gonna lay out the things and do it
Mhm.
in the order that they're like for me as someone that was like very into tarot and not into Oracle for a while, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I love that like it's all the same. Like I love
Uh-huh.
that I know what to expect kind of.
Mhm.
And maybe that's also my like neurodivergence coming out, but where I'm like, yeah, I know that I can pick up a deck and I already know a little bit about it, even though I've never seen it before.
Mhm.
Which I feel like again, as someone that's neurodivergent, it's like that's what I wish it was like for everything, is that there was a
Right.
guidebook and it could just tell me things, and then
Mhm.
I could from there infer my own
Mhm.
understanding or what worked for me.
Yeah, where's that life guidebook, not just a tarot guidebook?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Where it's like, do this, or, try other things. But um, yeah,
No, I love the concept of ritual, and that was another thing that kind of I think drew me in. Leaving a high demand religion where every Sunday you knew what to expect. It was this and this and this. And my church culture was also very social. So you had this activity on this weeknight and this activity on this. And we had temple ceremonies and like it was very ritualized. And then stepping away and figuring out, oh no, rituals and routines do help me. They don't have to have a bad
yeah,
connotation. And that's, getting a little more into rituals around new and full moons and things. I was talking to a friend who's psychic one day, and she's like, your guides want you to know that you're very affected by the moon. Like, are you aware of that? And I was like, no. She's like, just start being aware. And I was like, okay. And then recognizing, oh, there is a cycle with that. There are rituals you can do. And that's been really interesting to explore as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it feels so different when ritual or routine is like consensual, where you
Yeah,
get to
when you're
choose
really
it,
truly
right?
opting in.
Yeah, yeah, and that, yeah, that there is, I feel like there's often this journey of like, okay, the high demand religion, and then it's like, now I want to do like the opposite or like nothing. And then it's
Mhm.
like, well, actually, like you said, okay, it's not all bad. Like I kind of want some of these aspects. I like the community. I like we all sort of, whatever it is, like we all have the structure of tarot, but we have our own decks, or
Yeah.
we can talk about it. And then, yeah, like moon cycle ritual, like being able to choose the things that feel like right to you.
Mhm.
And kind of, yeah, choose that structure
Absolutely.
again
And again,
instead.
using your intuition to figure that out and what works for you, not all the shoulds. And that's been such the journey for me of letting go of the shoulds, of how my life should look according to what I learned growing up. My life does not look like that. And my life works really well for me and being okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know for me too, it's like having to sometimes like create my own community or like distance myself from people that live life differently from me and that where I do feel that pressure.
Hmm.
I think sometimes, right, like I think we've all experienced that on social media, but
Sure.
even just sometimes like cultivating community that have similar ideals and values,
Yeah.
it just really normalizes things. Putting on my
Yeah.
therapy hat, I'm like, yeah, like having that's like a big thing I talk about with clients. Like
Huge.
I work with like polyamorous clients or witchy clients, like marginalized
Hmm.
clients where I'll be like, okay, like, do you know anyone else, right, that like is in this
Hmm.
community or like right? Or is the only time you're ever talking about it is like in therapy or like with your partner. Like
Hmm.
there are other people doing this. Like let's, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to, because it does just help normalize that, like, oh yeah, it's totally valid to like again live this way or kind of do this or that, and that I don't have to do what
Yeah.
was told or modeled.
That that was so huge as part of my journey, realizing I was queer. 'Cause I dated a woman in 2014, and me being a little slow on the uptake, or just all the compet,
Yeah.
I didn't realize for another 3 to 4 years, after I guess 3 years after we had finished officially dating, that I actually was queer. Like just all the messaging around it. And as I started really wrestling with my sexuality at that point, end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I then went to queer community and tried to connect to other queer people. And what was so radical about that initially to me was seeing people who were queer and who didn't hate themselves, which was so radical to me at the time because I had such internalized homophobia after growing up in a very heteronormative, high demand religion and society,
Yeah.
to just see people that actually liked their lives and were living and doing awesome things that I was like, just got a glimpse of maybe it's possible for me to be queer and like myself.
Yeah.
And that started the journey. And it's was a wrestle for quite some time, but I'm a huge advocate of community as well when I work with individuals and clients because so much of the damage that happens in our lives is done in relationship and community. So the healing needs to be done the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's very hard to heal in isolation.
Absolutely. And
Uh,
that's why therapy itself is so healing, is just
yeah.
having the connection with a good therapist too. And I'm sure both of us are always encouraging, and who else? And who else?
Yeah.
Can't just be one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Humans are community creatures.
Yes. Yeah. And that we just like function better. I think like our mental health is better in community. I think, right, it doesn't mean that all community is good for you,
Absolutely. Be
but
careful.
having kind of like the right community is, yeah, can be very healing. Um, yeah. I just wanted to, you said compat earlier, that's compulsory heterosexuality for people that may have not heard that term before. No, it's okay. I just wanted to mark that down. Yeah, so yeah, I'm curious. So we talked about kind of queer identity. Like, what is your, do you have like pagan, witchy, spiritual identity? Like what kind of words do you like to use for that?
Oh, still figuring it out and
Yeah.
giving myself permission to be figuring it out. Because again, growing up, it was so black and white of your identities. I definitely consider myself spiritual, not religious, definitely at least a bit witchy. Um, I feel like taking on the full identity of a witch is like, ooh, am I ready for that? Am I prepared for that?
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely gravitate towards it, and I definitely will say, yeah, I'm definitely a bit witchy. I love celebrating the Wheel of the Year with some friends that we do and gather every 6-ish weeks. And I love the ritual and routine of marking the seasons that way and being aware of my own internal landscape as the external landscape changes. But yeah, I think I'm still figuring a bit about my labels that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think witch, I was recording a solo episode of the podcast earlier where I was like, oh yeah, witch was like a insult, right?
Yeah.
Like, that it does sort of take a reclaiming, I
Mhm.
think, and it is like a big word to just like take on. Um, I
It
think,
is. And I think the reclaiming of it can be really powerful too.
yeah,
Just like the using the term queer
right.
is a reclaimed term. And when I was first in my journey, I stayed away from using the term queer. And now it's my favorite word to use. I think witch is the same way. And I'm just still on that development
Yeah.
myself. I also, it made me think of an oracle deck I have that's the witch oracle, but it's woman in total control of herself
Yeah.
acronym for the oracle deck. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can work on claiming that.
Yeah. Right. We're like, oh yeah, I can have the audacity to be in control of myself.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I think yeah, it also is about like, okay, yeah, what's your definition, right? Like
Mhm.
if that's part of the definition, it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. I think sometimes I know for myself, like if you already have marginalized identities, which like most people do, let's be
Yeah,
real,
so many of
have at
us.
least one, that like sometimes taking on another one is like, do I have to? Like,
Mhm.
do I have to add to like the list of like, okay, now I'm gonna add which
Yeah.
onto my right queer identity, my neurodivergent identity, my
Mhm.
disabled identity, like where it can feel like it is like a heavy thing to take
Yeah,
on just
absolutely.
because of yeah like historically what it
Mhm.
means that yeah now I very proudly say which but it took me a while too. I definitely was like I'm spiritual, I'm
Mhm.
witchy,
Mhm.
uh woo, although that one I'm like, I would use it, but it's not the right like vibe for me
Mhm.
in particular. But yeah, my mom would call herself like a hippie when
Mhm.
like that was, I'm like, yeah, okay. Those were like more normalized to me
Mhm. Mhm.
um growing up. But yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious then. So you haven't reclaimed the identity of witch, but you are leading a coven. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Um, I contain multitudes, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, so again, talking about the importance of community, and as part of my queerness, I realized the importance of reclaiming joy as a marginalized person and still
Mm,
really leaning into feeling joy, even when life is hard, and maybe especially when life is hard. Um, And it makes me think one quote I use a lot that I think came from Dan Savage during the AIDS crisis was that, in the morning, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced all night. And the dancing is what reminded us what we were fighting for. Um, and I think sometimes during hard times, during crises, during being a marginalized human in whatever way, it can feel bad sometimes to allow yourself to feel joy because it's like, well, who am I to still feel joy when all these terrible things are going on? And I really think joy is what can keep us going. And so I've really been leaning into this idea of queer joy and just joy in general. I hosted a summit, a queer joy summit online. I used to co-host a podcast where we would ask our guests who were all queer about like, what was your queer joy this week? And so it's kind of been a theme and wanting to lean into community. I decided to start a Queer Joy Coven, and it's online, so anyone in the world can join. It's hosted on a platform off of Meta, in a program called Heartbeat, and it's just a 24/7 community where people can come in and like Facebook or something like that, make posts, make comments. I have different question and conversation starters, but twice a month we gather together, once around a new or full moon and have like a moon gathering, and then once having a joy or magic gathering. And it's still a newer coven. Excited to be getting the word out there just for queer people to gather and connect to each other, connect to themselves, connect to their intuition, and really lean into that queer joy and queer magic. And we have lots of cool things, including you're coming up and guest hosting a
yeah.
new moon and intuitive gathering with tarot, and I'm super excited to have you. I think when this episode comes out, just later in the week.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this episode will come out April 13th.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, the following week is when
Okay.
I'll be leading the new moon gathering, tarot reading time. Yeah, so we're for you when you thought about the coven or kind of okay, you had the Queer Joy Summit, which
Mhm.
also I got to be a part of. That's how we kind of first connected.
Yeah.
Um, that then right, you're transitioning into like, okay, I want to have right continual community, not just
Mhm.
in a summit, but I want to have people
Right.
be able to gather together virtually for different
Mhm.
things. Like, was tarot and moon gatherings, were those always a part of it in your mind? Should those come along later when you were thinking about like the magic joy aspect of it? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, great question. Because actually, originally, with the last Queer Joy Summit, I launched the Queer Joy Collective, and that was my
Okay.
initial plan was just like
Mhm.
queer joy, queer joy, queer joy, and just doing like one monthly gathering, even lower cost than what the Queer Joy Coven is now. But as I was doing it, I'm like, this doesn't quite feel right, and I realized I think it was because I was leaving out part of my identity. Because like,
Mm,
yes, it is very queer, but I am witchy, and I as I've been tuning into moon states and different rituals, it really felt like more of a full homecoming when I can bring in the joy and the magic together. And
yeah.
so I transitioned it to be the Queer Joy Coven, doing both of those things. So we have still a joy or magic gathering now, whereas before it was just like something focused around joy, and then adding in a moon circle of some kind around either the full or new moon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that like, yeah, you had to use your intuition to be like, wait a minute, this feels good, but not great. Or like this doesn't
Yeah.
feel totally right. And I think, yeah, collective versus coven. Collective has like a bit more of like a we're business partners, like a
Yeah.
little more, I don't know, stuffy sort
Hmm.
of. I mean, it can be nice too. It could be hippie, like kind of thing, but yeah,
Hmm.
Coven is like tighter knit. It's kind of like you said, it's kind of inherently witchy. It's
Hmm.
the more of the gathering aspect of it.
Yeah.
Um, and
True
I
community, I think.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think like joy and magic like are so I know when like I think about like inner child work, like the joy of like things as a kid feel like magic to me.
Yeah.
Like watching whatever like different magical movies or just like creating doing crafting or like a lot of the things that I liked doing as a kid. I'm like, oh yeah, the like what I liked about it was like the alchemy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that word as a child, but I'm like creating things, right? Like it wasn't like
Hmm.
you were mashing things together, playing dress up and like having an imagination and kind of
Hmm.
that was a big part of my childhood. In addition to like making soup or whatever, like with sticks and dirt and gathering worms and
Of course,
playing in
gotta
the
make all your
dirt.
potions.
Yeah, exactly. Like making little potions, saving rocks on a
Hmm.
shelf perpetually. Um,
Which morphed into crystals.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Or yeah, I know to me it just sort of feels like, oh yeah, all that goes together. And
Hmm.
that's probably because I also am like, yes, Queer Joy Coven. It all
Uh-huh.
makes sense. So,
Uh-huh.
um, yeah. And I think like coven's probably another thing that like a word that's like getting more reclaiming.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think it wasn't necessarily like a negative. I just think it was like inherently witchy. And so it was a little scary maybe to use it with like external people.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
but
is interesting that I'm like so comfortable using the term coven and leading a coven, but not saying full chested, like I'm a witch.
yeah,
Probably am, but don't know that I've fully claimed that yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, yeah, there's just so many iterations of what is a witch
Yeah.
too. That yeah, I don't know. It's like more exploring or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know, like, I have like an online coven, the Dirty Hoe
Mm.
Coven that I'm a part of, where we are gardeners first. And, and that's like
Amazing.
part of our identity there. So we do lots of seed swapping and
Hmm.
like, uh, that, yeah. And like, I still sometimes will be like, do I use the word coven? Like, who am I talking
Hmm.
to? Right? As to like we're a group of gardeners has like a very different sound than like
Sure.
we're the Dirty Hoe Coven because we think we're funny and we're gardeners. And but it is like a collective. Like it is a very
Mhm.
like it's Skillshare. It's
Mhm.
like sharing resources. It's like sharing joy and doing
Mhm.
gatherings.
Mhm.
And it's mostly virtual, although we try to meet once a year for like an in-person retreat.
Oh, cool.
Um, so yeah, that was also part of my witch journey. It was being like, oh, here's like other people that are like
Mhm.
me, that are like nerdy and read nonfiction books about like amphibians or like or like will deep dive a subject and like are into foraging and also like gardening and also like yeah, very neurodivergent that it was like, oh yeah, okay, like I fit in very well to this
Mhm.
and like I guess this is what this is. Um and yeah, I know when I met some of them like in person, I got to see people's like houses or just like people's tattoos or like I just got to see more of people and I was like, oh, we're like like we're all very similar, but there's also like different iterations of which. Like I'm a very like, I mean, if you're like watching the video, you can see my background is very like it's maximalist, it's planty, it's colorful. One of
Mhm.
my like coven friends does the very like I would say like satanic witch vibes, which is like all black, red,
Mhm.
like we're going like Baphomet, like we like hardcore, like stereotypical in some ways, like witch like art and stuff, which I'm
Mhm.
like, that's not me. Like that's really intense. But
Mhm.
also like we get along well. Or
Yeah.
some of us like some people do like sewing or it's just like very I do a lot of like green witchery, mat
Mhm.
plants, cooking, gardening stuff. So I think for me too, part of it was recognizing that like, oh yeah, like we're all witches, but also there's like different like there's different kinds and that's okay. And we can like still all be under the same like label. Um,
Mhm.
and that also like it's fine to be a stereotypical witch and like
Yeah.
have a pentagram and like wear all black. Like
Mhm.
you do you. I have a white fluffy cat, so like wearing all black really it's not practical for me.
Fair.
So our house that I like moved last year and the house that we bought is very white and like cream colored and
Mhm.
like modern. We joked that we got it because it matched our cat. He's like white and like cream colored and we were like it's
Mhm.
perfect. His cat hair will just like fully absorb into everything. He'll blend in. It'll be easy for me.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to tarot. Let's pull me back world.
Well, no, I did appreciate you talking about that because I think that is the power of community, or can be a power of community, is realizing there's still diversity within community.
Yeah.
Whether it is the queer community that we're both part of, whether it is the witch coven type communities that we're both part of, there's still a lot of variety. And I think it still helps to connect to other people who have similarities while also realizing you aren't a carbon copy of anyone else in the community. You're still you. You still have multiple other identities and they combine in unique ways. And you could still be part of a community and not be ostracized. Because I don't know about you, I work with a lot of people and myself who have wounds in community of not
Yeah.
fitting in. And so to
Yeah.
be a part of a community, whether it's virtual or in person or both, that you realize, oh, I can be accepted for all of me and not just this part of me. And I think that is part of the really valuable part of being in community with other marginalized people of your same identity too, is because a lot of people have those same wounds of being rejected because they were too witchy or too queer or whatever,
Yeah.
and they realize, oh, this is okay and it's celebrated. I think there's a lot of power there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like if we look at the actual like systems at patriarchy, at like the big systems at play, it's like, yeah, no, like they benefit from us thinking that like we aren't the same, that like
Mhm.
we can't get along or that we are like too different. Um, I'm trying to think where exactly I was going with that. But just that yeah, it's okay to right like be a different kind of witch and like still
Mhm.
be in community together. And I think too that like it's so fun to like learn from other people that maybe I'm not super into crystals, but like I know someone that is and I'm like, tell me more. Where I think like I know for me, like some tarot decks allow me to explore like different versions of tarot or that like
Yeah.
it feels similar where it's like yeah tarot has the same structure in every deck
Mhm.
pretty much but I have some decks that change all the suits to be a different name to be on theme or I have some decks where yeah the Fool card has a very different energy than like a different deck
Mhm.
um where yeah that there is diversity within
Mhm.
the community or structure
For
that's
sure.
there and that yeah, and that's like the fun of it, right? That like the diversity of it is like the magical part. It's not
Mhm.
the thing where we just have to pretend to all be similar and like that's like what's safe.
Right.
I think that's like the aspect I was thinking of with like big systems, that it's like sometimes it feels safest to just like follow the rules and like do kind of like what you've been told and it is expected, because you don't have representation outside of
Hmm.
that. You can't imagine like how it would be different or see it or see people living their life, like you said earlier, where it's like, oh yeah, no, like they seem to be doing great. So now that makes me really question a lot of things I've been told. Huh, okay. And that, yeah, but that it still can be a process that's like, okay, how do I, for myself, figure
Hmm.
out, yeah, how to heal from some of those like wounds of community, and that, yeah, finding the right community for
Hmm.
yourself, or coven or gathering or collective, like can be so healing, like you
Absolutely.
said. I know when I work with like couples or relational clients, like we talk a
Hmm.
lot about attachment, and it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's really hard to heal your attachment in isolation because it's
Hmm.
all about your relationship to other people.
Yep.
And that, yeah, you can learn all about it, and like we can talk about your trauma, we can talk about all of that, but for it really, in my opinion, to like feel different, to achieve the ideal of secure attachment that we're all out here trying to do, it's like, yeah, no, like you have to actually experience it with someone,
Hmm.
right? You have to actually feel you can trust, and like trust in yourself, and trust that being your whole self is
Hmm.
okay and accepted. Um, in order to be like, okay, yeah, I guess I am totally fine. And that was a
Hmm.
them problem.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, to bring it to the therapy world.
Love it.
Um, yeah. And I think for me too, yeah, tarot was kind of like it found me. I like to sometimes ask people, like, did you find tarot? How did it find you?
Mm.
Because I think, right, it's like it's been around for a long time, but how, right, like how did it kind of, where did you get the nudge from?
Right.
So yeah, when you saw the Kickstarter, were you like, oh, I know what tarot is? Was it like, I like the art? Was it like, I'm just intrigued? And
Great question. I'm trying to think back to that. I think it was like I knew again pop culture type
yeah,
tarot, more as a divination practice, which I can still use tarot for, but that's not my primary way of using tarot now.
yeah,
Um, I just really liked the art for that particular deck
yeah,
initially. I even showed it to a friend. She's like, "Oh, that's such a Colette deck," as far as like the colors and just the way it looked.
yeah.
Um,
They
and so-
affirmed that that was very you.
yes. And so I think that's what drew me to it. I was like, oh, tarot's a thing. I've heard of it. I don't know about, but the art's really pretty. But like I said, I didn't touch it for months, if not over a year. I can't remember. It might have been over a year because when I did that study group, it might have actually been 2021, not 2020. So it was quite the journey for me to actually then start picking up and using it
Yeah.
because it did feel a little intimidating and scary. It's like, okay, it's beautiful, but like, what do I
Now
do
what?
with it?
Yeah.
There wasn't any training until I joined that group. I know I could have sought it out myself, but I didn't. And so it just sat there unused until it was time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like when I do ask people about their tarot journey, and I think even for myself, like it feels similar where it feels like
Hmm.
I knew about it. Mine was like a deck in a store that I passed all the time on the way to work.
Hmm.
And it was the only deck in there. Like it wasn't a tarot, like it wasn't a witchy store
Oh,
necessarily.
really?
Yeah, it was like a clothing boutique, like handmade clothes. They had like some jewelry, like local artists is what I would
Hmm.
say, like were there. But it wasn't like I could peruse decks. It was like there
Hmm.
was one.
Hmm.
And I just felt very like, I don't know why, but I just like want to go in here every single time I like pass the store. And I think I like bought some earrings like for a friend's birth. Like I went in multiple
Hmm.
times. Um, and it wasn't until I was like, I guess I'm buying that. Like, I guess there's like this, there's a reason I need to be in here. And it
Yeah.
was, yeah, like from a local artist. So I'm sure that's like why it was in there. but yeah, I sort of similarly that I'm like, I don't think I was like every day, like I think it took a while. Like it took me a
Yeah.
while to actually like get it and that like buy it and like realize that that's what was going on and then to be like, what do I do? And for me, it wasn't until I was like, I would post like cards that I pulled like with like no explanation or anything, just like on my Instagram story, right? To just be like in my head, I'd be like, yeah, I like did a spread and like here's some nice art. And
Hmm.
friends started to be like, oh, like, do you do tarot? Like, I didn't know. Like, will you do a tarot reading for me? And I was like, I guess. Like, I was like, I don't know anything. What do you mean? Um, that's when I was like, oh, I actually do know. Right. It was like, oh, actually, yeah, I have been doing this for myself for a while, and I do know some things that it made me realize in talking to other people, which is part of why I started the podcast. That like, oh yeah, no, I do like I have absorbed information about tarot by using it, right? Or by
Yeah.
like listening to other things or reading some stuff. I never read like specific tarot books. I tried. I would buy them like that was like memorize the tarot and I'd be like gotta do it. That's what they say. And then I'd
Hmm.
be like, oh, it's so boring. Like I don't want
Hmm.
it's like one page per card. Like ugh. And yeah, it wasn't until I just used it all the time that I was like, oh, actually, like I do know. Like you said,
Hmm.
right? I can look at the image and I get a vibe and like usually I'm correct. Um, that it was like, oh, okay, like, and I guess I do. Um, Especially when I read for other people,
Yeah.
that it sort of forced me to like say, obviously, like why I
Hmm.
knew or suspected. Um, and I think it also there was an aspect of it where it like made it very real to me, where it was like on the topic of anxiety versus intuition, where I do feel like a common question that I get when I would talk to people that are new to tarot are like, how do I know I'm not making it all up? Of like, right, that like, sure, I can like think things, but like there no one's telling me that that's correct, right? Unless like the book says yes, it's this.
Hmm.
Um, that um that it was like, oh yeah, no, like I pulled cards for like two different people, two friends of mine. Very like different personalities, but we have some things in common. And like one friend who's like more intense and stuff, she got like the tower, like very intense
Hmm.
cards. And her reaction was like, oh, why does this always happen to me? And I was like, oh. And I had the experience of pulling cards where I was like, I've never seen that card before in my life, even though like obviously I have, like I've looked at the whole deck. I've used the cards for a long time, but it was like, oh, that like it's not relevant to me right now, or
Hmm.
like that's a card that comes up for other people, but not for me. That I was like, oh, in my brain, it was like, this is real. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
just making it all
Hmm.
up, or that like it's picking up on people's energy or
Yeah.
whatever. However you want to think it works.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. Huh. Like using the same deck for three different people got me three very different outcomes, and that was like cool to see. It
Yeah.
gave me some encouragement, probably. Um, I want to make sure we talk about the queer friendly decks because I
Yeah.
asked about this. So I like to ask folks if like they have a favorite deck, and then like if you have queer friendly decks or like what you have and what you
Yeah.
recommend or use with folks.
No, I'm really glad you asked about that because, again, I have quite the collection, and there's a lot that I think are queer friendly, but there's some that are just a lot more heteronormative
Yeah.
that I am like, don't love the traditional marriage for 10 of cups with a
Yeah.
man and a
Or even
woman.
just like the language. I read one the other day
Yeah.
that was the emperor and it was just like he.
Mhm.
And I was like, they? Like, can we, like, why? Like,
Right.
it doesn't, you don't have to be a he to align with the card.
Right.
Yeah.
So I grabbed a few that I think
Okay.
are a lot more queer friendly. First is the Fifth Spirit Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess, who is a trans human themselves, and just have really cool depictions of even like some maybe could be considered gender swapped type images for people, and also showing like diversity of body shapes. Like the star, you can see like stomach wrinkles. What a
Mm,
concept. If I remember right, I think the devil is like a trans man. Like you can see top surgery scars on the devil, if I'm remembering
yeah.
right on that one. Just very, very inclusive that way. I also got the tarot for you and me, and it's marketed as a queer deck. The author of this one, an artist, they actually have a few different and like they change out. So like flags is now one of the suits, which is kind of fun.
Oh, okay.
Instead of might be swords. And it's just really, you can see on the back of the cards, super happy rainbow.
Yeah.
The hanged one, I just pulled that one. Instead of the hanged man, it's the hanged one, and it's a
Yeah.
person on a pole, a pole dancer. So it's really cool that way. I just got this one and haven't played around with it much yet, but this was a friend. She said this is one of the ones she uses the most. It's a collaborative deck of
Oh,
different
that's
artists,
cool.
which is really cool, just seeing different art and interpretation. And the back of the cards all literally say love is love
Hmm.
in rainbow,
Oh,
which I
gorgeous.
adore.
Wow. Yeah.
And then the Numinous Tarot also, I think, is a really
Okay.
good inclusive one. So, and it even says on the back, both the deck and guidebook feature gender neutral language. Um, which
Nice.
I love that representation because I think it can be hard to maybe see yourself in cards if it is too gendered, even with
Yeah.
archetypes and things, recognizing that Emperor isn't a he, Empress isn't a she, it's an energy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. That we all have aspects of that energy inside of
Absolutely.
us. Yeah.
So those are the ones I grabbed to talk about that.
Cool.
Thank you for asking. I'm like, yes, let me share these with you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious as a collector of decks,
Oh my gosh.
where do you find them? Is it like you get online? Do you have a store there in person that you go to and browse?
Yeah, so I live in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. There are plenty of metaphysical shops, and I've gotten some from those. The Tarot for You and Me, I got from a queer bookshop in the area. I'd been eyeing it for a while, and finally I was at a queer some market of some kind, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of times, again, not to plug Kickstarter too much, but like I do keep an eye out, and now Kickstarter's like, ooh, if there's a new deck, we're gonna email Colette and
Yeah.
tempt her. Uh, and so I've gotten quite a few that way. I really just keep an eye out for different things, and all the social media ads have me pegged now, so I'll get ads for ones. And if I'm attracted to it and have the funds, then yeah, I'll buy it because I just love looking at the art and the interpretations and how different things come up, even again with the same card, but different imagery, different
Yeah.
descriptions in the guidebook. Um, so just keeping an eye out for different fun ones.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've had that experience too of decks where I'm like, oh, I need to get that one day. Right. Or like, okay, bookmarked in my
Hmm.
brain. And then
Hmm.
you see it again and again, and you're like, okay,
Okay, fine.
yeah.
It's time.
Yeah. That's very fun. So yeah, I'm curious then. So right, we talked about kind of having queer friendly decks, partially because yeah, if you work with people and use decks with other people, like it's nice to
Hmm.
have those. Like, how do you use tarot with when you work with other people? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It really depends. Obviously on the individual and the client. I remember when I was in like a group practice doing therapy, I just know I had one client who was a little witchy, and so I would just bring a different
Mm,
deck every time we met. And we met in person, and so for him, I would just offer the opportunity, like, do you want to draw a card? And the way he did it was he would take the deck, and I'm not precious about my decks. Like people can
yeah.
touch them and whatever. I could clear the energy myself later. And he would just draw, and then we would talk about what came up for him with the draw. Sometimes he would read the guidebook. But for other people, sometimes it is like a nudge for me to offer, and seeing, do you want me to pull? Do you want to pull? I've also sometimes had more the nudge to do, instead of a blind pull, do a pull where you actually like see the different cards and like,
Yeah.
okay, so what stands out to you? And then that can become a theme of what we're working on. Um, so there's just so many different ways. And so I don't necessarily want to say like, this is how I do it, because
Yeah.
it is so individual based on what we're working on, what the client likes, how they want to use it, what feels good in the moment, if we're in person or online, like, but lots of different ways, but still generally as a like reflection tool or a way to just help continue to move the work forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what about personally? So it sounds like similarly, like as a reflective practice, sometimes like as a ritual, it sounds like
Yes.
we're kind of doing, what is that? Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah. Personally, I did I bought a journal or planner for the year where there was a spot to do a pull a day, and I haven't necessarily kept up with that. But the planner also has a page to do a monthly spread and a new and full moon spread. And so I've really gotten into that as a ritual. Maybe a little bit predictive, but really I just appreciate the chance to reflect and look at themes.
Yeah.
Um, and it has the space to like do the card, and then I write like what's coming up with me in that card or from the guidebook theme wise. And that's how I tend to use it. And even within the Queer Joy Coven, how I've been doing it is allowing that space for others to do the same if they have decks, to have it be a reflective tool of what's happened since the last full or new moon,
Yeah.
or since the last time we met, what's coming up, and give some suggested questions if they don't have any, and then using that time to also witness each other if anything comes up that people want to share.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Well, I've officially asked all my questions. Is there anything you want to share that I haven't asked about today? Give you a therapy question.
And I was like, gonna turn around. Is there anything you wish you had asked me? I think I would just want to encourage people to try it, just like we talked about earlier. If it's something that interests you even a little bit, like why not just try it and see what happens? And know that I think both of us be more than happy to meet with individuals and use this as a tool if people are wanting some someone with a mental health who is a therapist, have that background, as well as the which part to bring that in as a tool. Because I think, not to get too much on a soapbox, I think therapy in general has been a little colonized and whitewashed, and just
Yeah.
realizing there's so many different ways to heal, which is why I'm going the more like healer coach route than I have a therapy practice and I'm a therapist, because I want to bring in whatever works for people and not feel bound to, well, I've got to use what insurance considers evidence-based practice. Though I know how to document around that when we
Yeah.
use alternative things. But being able to pull in tarot and oracle cards if people want, being able to bring in Reiki and sound healing and tapping and soul retrieval and Akashic records, and whatever speaks to an individual that maybe is a little more witchy, as part of their healing, while being a solid clinician with the mental health background, not someone who just, I don't want to downplay coaches, but there's not as much training as there is for therapists, like structured trainer that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of my takeaway. Know that there is support if this is something that interests you for healing, for reflection, or if you just want to play on your own, I'd really encourage it. And even if it takes a while, like I had that deck sitting for more than a year before I really used it, I think you'll know when the time's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love what you shared too about like kind of taking on the identity of like healer or other things. Because to me, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense because it's like an archetype, right? It's like
Mhm.
instead of like I am therapist because like my
Mhm.
license says so and I like
Mhm.
did the hours and right, I
Mhm.
did the logistical part, therefore I
Mhm.
am. It's like, well,
Mhm.
what if, yeah, I'm looking at it from this realm of like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm providing. Like this is yeah, all the different tools, like you said,
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily have to learn when you get a master's degree, but that are
Right.
still helpful to people. But I think it helps too for potential clients to realize, like, guess what? There are therapists like us that
Yes,
will
we exist.
do tarot with you in therapy, or even just have you, right, talk about it, that understand what you're talking about and are seeing queer folks and make it in a coven and like doing all
Uh-huh.
these things, like, and also, yeah, we're therapists too.
Yes. Love all that.
Yeah.
And one thing that came up as you were talking about healers, one thing I also like to mention, I never want to put myself on a pedestal if I'm a healer, because I ultimately believe part of my role as a healer and therapist and guide and coach and whatever word I use is to help others heal themselves.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the person on the pedestal that will tell you what to do to heal. Like I'm going to help activate your own internal healing system and tune you back into yourself
Yeah.
so you can heal yourself. And tarot may be a tool of that, it may not be. We can explore that.
Yeah. 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 I think similarly, it's like, yeah, my main thing is like helping people like tune into their own intuition, right? Like to
Huge.
realize that, like, oh yeah, everyone has this, right?
Mhm.
Like maybe you've been, yeah, taught out of it or shamed out of it, but it's there, and like you actually have all the answers, right? Like
Mhm.
you have all the tools you need
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
And yeah, that you don't necessarily have to always like look for things outside of
Yeah,
yourself to solve your own healing. Of course, we would love to help you
of
if
course.
you're
Happy to be a support.
interested. Yeah, right. My ideal is that like, yeah, that I could work myself out of a job, right? That
Yeah.
people wouldn't need to come to me weekly for therapy. That yeah, they find out how to best heal themselves also,
Mhm.
or just that it's a journey.
Yeah, it is.
We're all still learning. Even if I paid a lot of money to go to get a master's degree to learn how to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I love that about tarot, right? Because like guess what? Like a tarot deck's like $30
Mhm.
sometimes. Like
Mhm.
you can find them so many, like I was gonna say anywhere, but like pretty much anywhere. Like I've
For
seen them in
real.
so many, like they're in bookstores, they're in like, yeah, any like metaphysical shop. You can go
Mhm.
online and find them. You
Mhm.
can search the name of a deck and
Mhm.
watch people on a YouTube video go through every single card. Some
Mhm.
artists are really good about having, artist websites and all of their decks and everything up there. Not all of them are, and I don't blame them. I'm sure they don't make a ton of money,
Sure.
unless they make a lot of decks. But yeah, I think it's a very cool way to support artists too.
Definitely.
Um, support, yeah, lots of like queer, disabled,
Mhm.
artistic community,
Mhm.
um, in doing that. So
Definitely.
yeah. Well, thanks for joining the podcast
Yeah, thanks
today.
for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, if folks want to find you, your website, ColetteDalton.com, and on Instagram and Threads, same Colette Dalton.
Mhm.
You can join the Queer Joy Coven, check out
Come
your
hang out, make
gatherings,
meal.
check out the moon gatherings if you want to be a guest on the show. I have my guest inquiry linked, links for the decks we talk about. I'll find all the links for the ones Colette talked about, and I'll have images for the cards we pulled. Um, as well in the show notes and on my website. And then, yeah, thanks for joining today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, podcast comes out every Monday morning, and folks can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com, with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right. See you later, folks. Bye bye.